Hi there. Welcome to the Aligned Living Podcast. I'm your host, Kathleen Galatly, and I'm super excited to have you join us. In these episodes, we're going to have some heart-to-heart conversations with experts, everyday wellness enthusiasts, and, well, anyone with a story to share about their journey towards a more balanced and harmonious life. Welcome to the Aligned Living Podcast, where well-being meets wisdom, and the journey is just as important as the destination. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Aligned Living Podcast with me, Kathleen Galatly. I'm super excited to have you here, whether you're watching this on YouTube or whether you're catching up on audio. Thanks so much for joining us today. Please make sure to like and subscribe or share if you enjoyed the information that you received from this session. I am extra excited about today's episode because it is taking us into the double digits. We are on episode 10 today, and I couldn't be more stoked and grateful to have my friend Tori Usgaard here with us today. I think hand straight over to her. Most of you know who I am, and you've heard me talk a lot. Today's all about her and all the exciting information that she's going to be sharing. So, Tori, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for being here. We've been excited about this for a couple weeks now, and I'm so glad that the day is here. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Kath. Honestly, I am so excited to be here. My first podcast ever. So as you know, that was like a very exciting thing. So I couldn't imagine anyone better to do it with than you. And so I'm just so happy to be here. A little bit of background about me. My name's Tori Usgaard. I'm from the United States originally, California actually, but I live in Cape Town. And I've lived in Cape Town now for just over a year and a half. And I'm opening up my first fitness studio this November in Cape Town City Center. And I'm just like bursting at the seams. Like, this has been such a vision of like trusting the timing and always having this idea of like how great it would be to create a space like this. So I'm just like, oh, so excited for it to finally be coming to fruition. So it's been an epic experience.
Congrats, babes. I have had the privilege of being such a big part of this journey of yours. So Tori and I are on the same, you can't really call it a business training with Lex, but she is a business queen. I guess you call it soul business. And Tori and I, with a group of women, have been together on an almost 6 month journey now, since May, I think it is, this year, 2023. And we meet every second Tuesday. We get workbooks, we get tasks, we have accountability groups. The amount of conversations we've had has been so inspiring. And so I've really had the privilege of witnessing you almost from the very beginning and like the birth of this, and seeing how you got your venue and how you're starting to get, some trainers in, and it's all really happening. Tori and I had a video call last week to catch up, and she was in the new space, and I was like, okay, now it's really, really real seeing you in the space, and that's incredibly exciting. So I think for me, when you see people doing these things, it can often feel like, oh, how did everything just like fall into place? And now this person has their dream and now it's just all happening for them. But, the reality is like, that's not how these things happen. Ideas take a long time to formulate, but ultimately those ideas, I think especially the work that you're doing, comes from a very deep place. It comes from your soul mission and not just the concept of starting a business. And I think, when you and I had our conversation, what I'm really fascinated to know a little more about, and maybe some of the listeners as well, people laugh because I always say I wouldn't really describe myself as a sporty person. And then people are like, yeah, but look at the yoga poses that you can do, etc., etc. But when I grew up, I did some dance and I did horse riding, but I was never really into like sports and fitness and that world, really, until I joined Jeff Fitness, where like my whole world was blown open, and I was working with nutritionists and personal trainers and physiotherapists, and it really is an extraordinary world. And Yeah, I mean, we've got the Rugby World Cup happening at the moment, and it just blows my mind to see athletes performing at the stages that they are. It's hardcore. And I know that I mean, your love for fitness and wellness really comes from a very young age. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about your personal journey with health and fitness, and maybe a few things that went really right and a few things that were really hard, and anything that comes to mind around that.
Yeah. Oh, I'll have so many things. I mean, first of all, just to touch on your point of like EE and to see how things like the timing of things. When I first had this vision a year ago, even since then, like it's crazy how you kind of trust the timing, because certain roadblocks happen that really delayed and delayed and delayed. And at the time, I'm like, why does this keep happening? You know, I'm feeling like a little victim mode of like, I'm trying so hard and it's not working out. But then now I look back, I'm like, what a blessing, because now I can feel that the space I have and the timing of it is exactly where it needs to be. So yeah, just a little comment there that I just am so grateful in terms of like trusting timing, and that those roadblocks happened for a reason, because it gave me the bandwidth to be able to think, oh, well, maybe that wasn't like, you know, like give me a little bit more time. Like, let's think on that a little bit more. Like, is that really aligned and all of that? So, yeah, even just to see how much my vision for like what it is that I want to create for people has changed in the last year has been so incredible. But to answer your real question about my fitness background, yeah, I mean, completely opposite to you. I mean, athletics has like, it was actually like unhealth, unhealthily, my like identity.
Unhealthfully.
Yeah, it was an unhealthy connection to my identity. I mean, I actually found like, now looking back, up until I graduated university, I mean, I was an athlete, and that's who I was. That's everything I was. And to the point of like, I actually didn't really know myself intimately, because my entire soul was wrapped around how good I was on the field, you know, which was great in terms of keeping me disciplined and like, you know, reaching the highest accolades that I was trying to get to. And, you know, I'm very proud to say that I actually did reach those goals, which was so amazing, but it was a very unhealthy, addictive path for me. But you know, so growing up, I did every sport. I was like ADD with sports, doing like gymnastics, doing soccer, doing track and field, doing everything. And then in high school, I ended up focusing in on track and field. And that was where I was recruited to go to university. And I ended up doing what's called the Heptathlon. And that's, a lot of people don't know what that is, but I'm like, I don't know if you know, yeah. It's actually 7 events in track and field that you compete over 2 days. What's incredible about the heptathlon is it allows people who are athletic still to have a chance, because track is like, you're fast, you jump high, or you throw far, and you have to be one of those 3 things, you know, like to be successful at track. But the heptathlon is a 7 different events. So the events are the 100-meter hurdles, high jump, shot put, the 200-meter sprint, long jump, javelin, and the 800. And you do those over the course of 2 days, and they combine your points based off of how you do over the 2 days, and then whoever is top ranked wins. And
That's
so
insane.
it's such a fun and amazing, incredible event. Because for me, like, I wasn't particularly like the fastest girl always, or jumping the furthest, but I was versatile and I loved the variety. And so it gave me a chance to really succeed at track, even though I wasn't, you know, the fastest, jumping the highest, or whatever. So I wasn't like, you know, it's kind of like that saying of like a master of none. I was
Oh,
like,
jack of all trades.
jack of all trades. Yeah, exactly. Kind of
Yes.
gives that person that way. So um that's where I like focused my sights on in university. And like I said, I'm really proud to say that I reached like the highest of all highs. My goal was always, I'm like, I'm gonna go to nationals, because obviously in America. I want to go to nationals. I want to be an all-American athlete, which is being top 16 in the nation. And I ended up getting top 16 in the nation on my final year of university. And like when I got that all-American status and I had that plaque in my hand, I was like, I did it. You know, I was like, oh my God, this is the moment, you know? And honestly, it's like, it like just makes me like, looking back on all that training, I'm like, I'm so grateful for how it all ended up. But then once I graduated and I had that first of all, no one really cared. Certain people, when they would like hear it, they're like, oh, that's so cool. But like, of course, my appreciation for it, and the people who are in the track and field industry, or like people who know how hard it is to reach that level, appreciate it, but most people don't. And so then I felt so empty because my entire being was contingent on this like identity that now no longer served me, because I wasn't training anymore. After I graduated, there was kind of like I could continue training, or I could go to the working world. And to be quite honest with you, it was like I obviously loved training, I loved track, but I was also like, I can't really make money in it, and I need to be a big girl now, time to like make some money and have a career, is kind of what I was thinking. And yeah, that was kind of a decision I made that, now a couple years, like 7 years later, I'm like ready to change, because I was like, I'm not in the field that I want to be in, and like I'm missing that athletic piece. And so obviously there's a lot more to that story, but that's a little bit of my background in terms of my athletics and just the training and all of that fun stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think it cultivates so many amazing qualities in people, your passion, your discipline, your ability to really push the human body's limits. There's so many cool things around. There's so many, if we look at athletes, how they can inspire children to, work harder to get where they need to be. There's an amazing aspect to it. But I know, something that you often share, and that you mentioned now as well, is that I didn't intimately know myself. And what we're seeing in the world right now is how, because talking about mental health is more accepted or acceptable, and people feel brave enough to speak about it, there are so many athletes coming forward now speaking about mental health and how much, when I was watching the rugby on Sunday, and I was watching our guys standing in the beginning and singing the anthem and looking at their faces, and I was just like, I cannot imagine the immensity, the scale and the size and the pressure that must be on their shoulders to do this. And you must be incredibly mentally strong. And mental strength is something that I really have to work on. I'm quite like laddie down, like, oh well, I don't really feel like working that hard today, so I'm just going to do some yin yoga or some restorative. And when we look at the energetics around that, it's less about, well, I guess it is there's still obviously the mental aspect, but when we look at our energetics, looking at our yin and our yang energy and which you're running, and athletes run so hard in their yang. It's like this amazing ability to have this self-discipline and this resilience and this dedication and this push. But I think it's almost like you said, like you reached this peak and it was so big for you because you'd attached so much of your worth to that thing, and then it falling flat almost goes like, oh wow, okay, well, no one's recognizing this. And or maybe like with a few people, like my loved ones or my friends or whatever the case might be. And that makes me think of, like a normal person, an average person who's not an athlete, who is trying to achieve their fitness goals or their wellness goals. And it can also mean as much to them, but you're not necessarily, as like a mom of three, going to come home from work and your husband go, well done, babe, I'm so glad that you did that workout, so proud of you, like where we maybe are also looking for these affirmations outside of ourselves. And what I found within this training that, the business training that you and I are doing, is it is so critical and crucial actually as human beings to have community and to have people that are supporting you on this journey. And I think when I think of hype and the space that you're opening now, I really get that feeling and that energy of it already, is that this is a space where we will hype you up. We will support you. We will be like, well done, you showed up today. That's amazing. Are you coming back tomorrow? Or when is your next session? I think that that's really, really beautiful, and creating that holistic environment where you're not just looking at the how am I doing this physically, but how am I addressing everything else, my mental health, my spiritual connection, whatever the case may be. And so I'd love for you to speak a little bit about, maybe bringing in a bit of Hype's ethos here and the work you're wanting to do that includes mental health and training, as well as the holistic approach that I know that the center is going to have.
100%. Well, you touched on so many amazing points. I mean, you mentioned like the external validation. I mean, that was obviously from my own personal experience, realizing that I was constantly striving for these titles because I externally wanted to be told how great I was, as opposed to just internally doing it for myself, which has so much to do with the Hype ethos of like, do it for you, like this is for you. We will be here along the step, like to get you, like to hold you accountable and to hold your hand as much or as little as you want us to. But create a safe space that you're here for you. This is you time. And so really Hype is, the vision for it is, my expertise is really in programming. So like strength, resistance training, helping people at any level of strength training, whether there's someone who's like, they've been like bodybuilding and that's like more their expertise, or someone who's like hasn't hardly ever lifted a dumbbell or a barbell and is just kind of like looking to dabble, and the programming can really fit any level of strength expertise, but it's all tailored to whatever someone's particular goals might be. So the vision with Hype is to be a much more personalized approach. So actually getting to know your clients, like, so when they come in, having a goal review session, like, why are you here? And I feel like right now, so much of fitness training is people are going to so many different studios where the studio managers, studio owners, the trainers don't actually know what the goal of the client is. So they come to their class and then maybe they're there for their mental health. Maybe they're there because they're trying to tone their arms. Maybe they're, but no one really knows because no one's having these conversations. So, I shouldn't say no one, but it just hasn't often been my experience, and is what I'm trying to build with Hype, is really that personalized approach. So like understanding someone's needs and desires, what they're trying to accomplish, and programming their workouts such that they reach those goals, and checking in with them on a regular basis, on a quarterly basis, talking with them and being like, let's see where we're at. And both with data. So one thing I'm so excited about, it's like just techie, is I've got one of those in-body scanners that scans your body. And I mean, that's just a basic, like, this is where your body fat, this is where you're at with lean muscle, skeletal muscle, all the whole body breakdown, composition. And I mean, that's just clear of like, where were you 3 months ago and where are you now, right? So this can kind of just be factual. How is your body looking comparatively on the composition scale? And then also, how are you feeling, right? Because the biggest vision with Hype is not to have you feel broken down. Like, I don't want strength training where it's like, you're so sore, you can't walk the next day. If that's the case, then we're doing something incredibly wrong, because you should feel really good. Like muscle, you can go to hypertrophy, which is like complete fatigue and failure in an exercise without actually damaging your muscles so bad that you're having a hard time walking the next day. Which, as you know, is why we focus so much on the strength training, but then also a whole other 50% of the business is on the recovery aspect, which is like, it's simply like the sauna and then ice bath, which the cold hot immersion is just, there's so many incredible health benefits to that, but it goes so much beyond just the regular muscle recovery. So like, just to feel good in terms of like soreness, it's also just, like you said, mental health. I mean, it's so meditative, and the dopamine that's released from a cold water immersion is insane. And it's so intimidating to so many people. But when you feel what it feels like to go through one of those hot, cold cycles, you become addicted to how incredible and lit up you feel. So one of the main visions of Hype is to incorporate the strength training, personal programming with the recovery, such that, like I said, you're never feeling ever beaten up, beaten down, torn down. You're always kind of feeling a level of energy and motivation to keep going, because you're just like, you don't think like, oh, I can't go tomorrow because I'm like, I can't, like my glutes are on fire and I actually just like can't do a squat. Of course we believe in recovery days. I mean, recovery is just as important, but just wanting you to do workouts that aren't going to be breaking you down so heavily.
No, that's incredible. And I mean, it's one of the reasons I ended up joining the J Fitness team, because initially it was only the high high intensity interval training, HIIT, yes.
Yeah.
And so they brought me on board to do some stretching initially, which then turned into doing yoga for better sleep and meditation and mindfulness practices and breath work. And they really do all, they complement each other so well, and there has to be that full spectrum. I mean, if that's what I try and tell people all the time, people who are really like, pushing their bodies really hard or working out, is if you look at any athlete, and you'd know this, like what, more than 50% of your training is about the recovery that you're doing. It's
Mhm.
about the nutrition that you're getting in. So it's not really helpful if you are at your gym 5 days a week doing high intensity training, but you're going home and eating McDonald's or Burger King and you're just doing absolutely no recovering. You're not inverting the legs or the body. You're not making sure you're hydrated with sufficient electrolytes. You're not getting nutrition to your cells. Really finding that whole balance. And I think it's kind of led me onto the segue of, I think that the idea of getting back to where you were can be very intimidating if you have lost it somewhere along the way. I know a lot of people, whether it's been work, career, whether it's been starting a family, whether it's been a trauma, an injury, an illness, a surgery, whatever you've gone through that's maybe taken you off your game, off your health game, off your fitness game, it can be quite intimidating getting back. You and I had a beautiful conversation about how do I reignite my passion for the things that used to drive me. I look at the kids who were playing like sports at school, or even if I look at myself, like my dance and my horse riding, like those were the things that really lit me up. Those were the things that, you do get that dopamine from it. You do get the positive chemicals in the body. You get a different sense of self-worth and confidence in yourself. You are in your body, you're embodied. You actually feel your reality and you're not disassociated, just kind of living in your brain or like on your computer. I actually went for a deep tissue massage yesterday, and it was so intense. And I always find massages are so interesting because you'll feel the parts of your body where pain is being held, where you might not normally have awareness. And
Mhm.
it's actually very embarrassing to say, but the main tightness and stiffness and soreness that I had were in my traps and in
Yeah.
my thumbs. So
Oh
if
my God.
anyone can put two and two together, that's computer screen and that's cell phone.
Yeah.
My thumbs were so sore, my traps were so sore from being on my computer and being on my phone. Um, Sorry, I got a little bit sidetracked there, but it's it's interesting when you had these things that brought up so much passion when you were younger, and you feel like you've forgotten, and it might be too late and be like, oh, I'll never look like that again, I'll never feel like that again, I'll never be that strong again. But actually meeting yourself where you are, and I'd love for you to speak a little bit. You said you stopped for a while. What were the factors? How did you bring yourself back to finding those things that were your passion? And I'm sure it looks different now to what it looked like then, but what is maybe your advice to someone who's going like, I really have this deep down need to get back to feeling that way, but I don't know how, or maybe I don't have the courage.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, well, so my personal experience with like when I graduated, I had been training for over 10 years that I was like, oh my gosh, wow, freedom, like now I don't have this, like it almost felt like I was excited at first, like, oh my gosh, like so much time to do other things. And then after about a year of that and like kind of working out, but like you said, kind of falling off just because I was like, now I don't have to train for anything. There's not really a reason. And
Mm,
I
mm, mm,
actually
mm.
felt myself like I mean, that was the moment of the identity crisis that I experienced where like I didn't know who I was. I was like, I am so depressed. I'm like, this isn't me. I was super anxious. I didn't feel good in my body. I mean, that was one of the biggest things was I just wasn't confident in myself. And like that was something I never had struggled with before. And so I finally, and to be quite honest with you, I was distracting myself. I like, I it sounds so dramatic when I say it, but I feel like it's just so true. I've got a very addictive personality. Like I get very, very like obsessed with things. And I think oftentimes about how my athletics like saved my life in a lot of ways, because addiction runs so heavily in my family that if I didn't have track and didn't have that discipline and I hadn't felt what it was to be in love and passion for something outside of myself, I think I could have fallen into a very dangerous other path, and I'm just so incredibly grateful. So about a year into not training and feeling that passion just dying and that flame just going out and being like, I knew for me, because I'm thinking back to this moment when I went back, I had to have a goal. So I did some, it was like some, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend, like a challenge. It was like a 4-week challenge. And for me, it was what I needed because I like having something that's like a goal oriented thing. And I knew how to program. And so I was like, okay, if I have these 4 weeks, let me just do 4 weeks, check in with my body and see how I feel. And then for me, it was like a competition. I was like, okay, this is where I'm at, and like this, and I just had it all laid out. So for me, it was something to kind of keep me focused. But if I'm thinking about someone who maybe doesn't have experience with programming, or it's also because it's not very good to also go from not really working out to working out heavily. So I would not
Which is
suggest that.
what most people end up doing.
When people say, "Oh, I'm training for a marathon," and they've never been a runner before, my whole body like I'm like, can I please just like talk to you for a moment, because it's so dangerous to put your body in that position, because if you haven't trained your body to withstand that kind of force all the time, you shouldn't just run a marathon. It's really unhealthy. And long term is going to have a massive impact on your joints and your muscles, which, yeah, I just think sometimes people aren't as, yeah, I mean, I love the vision and I love the like go-getter attitude. And those are the kind of people that I love working with, but it's just, it can actually do more harm than good is the point. And it oftentimes you won't even know immediately. It could be years down the line, all of a sudden your hips and your shins and your ankles and like things are kind of starting to flare up, which maybe weren't impacting you as much in your 20s, but in your 30s, or you're feeling more. And yeah. So to me, someone who's interested in getting in, it's like the accountability. You need someone that you feel comfortable talking to and discuss it, and who's experienced and also can give you good advice of like where the right stepping stones are. But I think the truth is just speaking it out, talking about what your goals are. Speaking of like why is it that you're interested in getting into fitness? Is it because you're feeling anxious and depressed? Is it because you don't feel good in your body? Is it because you want to lose weight? Is it because, you know, you're just feeling like you've been really low energy and you feel like the times you felt the best were when you were working out, but maybe you get bored. I mean, that's oftentimes a lot. I feel like a lot of people goes through fat.
Take a breather and explore the Align Living on-demand video library, along with our exclusive membership perks. Plus, our YouTube channel is already up and running, offering even more wellness content. Your path to holistic glowing is just one click away. Visit our website to learn more. And now, let's return to our inspiring discussion.
Obsessed with something, and the programming maybe tailors off, and then they fall off the wagon kind of deal, and it's like finding something where you can stay consistent with an accountability partner. So that would be my suggestion, is finding a fitness professional near you who either your friends go to, or who's trusted that you can work with, because they'll help you to kind of come up with a program that will be best suited for whatever your fitness background is. Because they should be asking you questions about, I mean, obviously there's so many things to factor in here, like what's your medical history, what kind of sports and athletics and fitness have you done in the past, what's worked for you, what hasn't, because those are all such important factors. You shouldn't just be throwing yourself into like a Pilates class tomorrow. I mean, you should really be, and then like the next day maybe you're doing a HIIT training. That's a whole nother thing. Like, I mean, I oftentimes think about how, I mean, I did this for sure. I loved changing it up. So I would go to a HIIT training class on Monday, which was like circuit based, very high impact. And then the next day I'd go to Pilates, and then the next day I'd go to yoga. And I loved having all these different activities. But what's really dangerous about this is that there's no programming, and you can be working the same muscle groups over and over and over again, which is so dangerous for your recovery, because your muscles each muscle group needs at least a day to recover. Like if you do legs and you're like working your glutes, you should give your glutes a day break. I mean, same thing with abs. People oftentimes like throw abs in every day, and it's actually your abs, just like any other muscle, they need a break. And you actually do more harm than good by not giving them the recovery that they need. So I think that was like a very roundabout way of answering your question. But.
No, thank you. Such great points, such great information. I wanted to touch on you saying when you were talking about, well, what's the point? Why am I doing this? What's the goal? There is no goal. So why am I doing this? And I think perhaps that's very often why people do set goals like, okay, I'm going to run a marathon, or I'm going to weigh this amount, or I'm going to, it's in human nature to want to be able to check off the boxes and go, cool, I've done this, I've won at this, I've completed this. But what's true is that on our fitness and our health journey is that there is no end, there is no complete, there is no checking off. Any kind of goal that you're checking off in that way is ego-based or mind-driven, or something that's actually potentially outside of yourself. I think that when it comes to health and it comes to fitness, especially, and this is something you and I have spoken about as well, especially when it comes to women, is realizing that it's going to be so messy. Actually, there's actually so much to take into consideration. Your hormonal cycles, what you're eating, like you said, there's so many factors, but for women especially, and it's becoming quite a big thing now as well, is how do women train? When is strength training important? Is cardio important? How should we be doing it? Again, it can be quite overwhelming. It can be quite stressful. And I think if you're trying to act as if you know everything, or you just grabbing the first program you see, or the first thing, like you say, like, I'm just going to do 5 different classes every week, and if I do that, I'm going to feel this way. It's not going to work, and B, it's not sustainable. You can look at the amount of times you've tried to jump into something like head on with an intention that is a goal, instead of, as Lex always says, instead of making something a goal, can you make it a commitment? So what is your commitment to yourself? How are you showing up for yourself? Why are you doing this? Because if it is potentially just to, let's say, to lose weight so you can feel better about yourself, there's absolutely nothing wrong with having that a part of why you want to do it. But I think you have to dig a little deeper and work into the soul a little bit about, is it that I want to be thin, or is it that I want to feel good? Is it that I want to be able to lift 100 kilograms, or is it because I want to feel strong in my body? Is it because I want to be able to do the splits, or is it I want flexibility so I can move with ease? And when we start bringing in that extra layer, that extra depth to why we are doing things, it becomes effortless. Not effortless, can still be tough, but the showing up starts becoming effortless. The showing up starts to be the like, hells yeah, I can't wait to show up for this thing. I can't wait to show up for myself. So I'd love actually for us to reverse a little bit here into women's health, into women in gyms, women in strength training or cardio. What is your insight on that? What can you share with us about that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, you touched on it with women and their cycles. It's for my personal journey has been so interesting, because I actually, during my training, when I was being like more competitively training, I was on hormonal birth control, and I look back on how stable my hormones were. So I was like, my trainers were amazing in terms of we did get proper recovery and training, but it was very on the masculine in terms of just like very consistent, just like every day we're kind of like this, which for me, I was actually on that track because I didn't have the fluctuations of my hormones because I was on birth control. And so that training for me at that time was totally fine. But then when I got off of hormonal birth control and I wanted to just kind of see, which for me, my whole personal experience was just to feel like, I want to feel what it feels like to go through a cycle. And I was kind of ready to experience that. And it has been such a journey, but it's been so amazing. And I personally have realized with my cycle, how often, like, depending on where I'm at, strength training can be great or it can be extremely detrimental. And I think the overarching goal or like vision for training on your cycle is that do what feels right. Like, you know, you of all people know, because there's not some cold fast truth of like, okay, yeah, in your follicular phase and in your menstruation, you can actually just lift heavy. Like, there's no clear cut and dry rules. There's some predictions of like what we see and like kind of what you might be able to like piece together. But ultimately it comes down to doing what feels good for your body in that day. And only you can really know that. So if you're feeling like, wow, this weight feels like so much heavier than it did last time, then it's like, okay, then that's okay. Stay at the, we'll just drop the weight a little bit and we'll increase the reps. Or there's certain modifications and changes you can make to still get the training without beating yourself up too much. But to your point of in your cycle, that's something I'm so excited about. And I love is just talking with women about what's right. So when you're feeling really high energy and you're feeling like you can lift weights, like, cool, like, let's push ourselves. Let's see how close we can get to that, high intensity, but like in terms of your 1 rep max. So when you're looking at like how much you can really challenge yourself, like that's the time to do it. But if you're feeling like, okay, more low impact, okay, this can be more training that's not going to be tearing down your muscles so much. And this might be more of a stretch session, you know what I mean? And so it's like all of the training programs can be programmed such that your body will feel really great afterwards. But that's the biggest thing, I think, is just feeling into what feels right for you that day. And there's really no cut and dry rule of like, follicular phase, luteal phase, this is what you should do and this is what you shouldn't do. There's like general rules of thumb, but it's like, it's so contingent on your own. I mean, I know for me personally, when I'm menstruating, I actually feel very high energy and I'm like ready to take on the world. And that's actually when I personally feel that I can lift the heaviest, which for a lot of people is not the same. I mean, it depends on your cycle and it depends on your hormones, so it's just, for me, that's a time that I feel strong. But then for others, it's their follicular phase, which isn't oftentimes what you see. But it's such a cool, when you start to feel into your body, it goes back into that knowing yourself. And if you kind of go back to your intention and feeling like, I want to feel really good, then like knowing your cycle and knowing when you can, like, it feels so good when you're like, I feel amazing today. I'm going to lift heavy and I'm excited about that, And then if your other days you're like, okay, I'm honestly just proud I made it here. Like, I'm going to maybe just go roll out and then I'm going to go in the sauna and the ice bath. And I'm like, cool. Like whatever you're needing that day is a-okay. But being in tune with your body and being able to feel and take a moment to like figure out what feels right for you that day is super important.
Yeah, and you said twice now, like, ask yourself how you feel on the day. And I think we often get into these, like, our routines or these fads or like the popular diet, popular exercise plans that can actually end up being very dangerous. Even something like cycle syncing, that is so huge now that, it can be very easy to go like, well, I'm in this week, so this is what I should be doing, or I'm in this week, so this is what I should be doing. And it not only being dangerous towards your physical health, but at some point you're probably going to let yourself down. I'm doing air quotes for those listening. You're going to like kind of let yourself down because you're not going to be able to achieve what, again, coming from almost like an ego state, is that you're imposing on yourself to be able to do, when actually the body will tell you very quickly how it feels. I was wondering if, are there any other kind of popular fads or things that you have seen around that are almost like the go-to, this is how to get fit quick kind of thing? If there's anything, I'd love for you to share a little bit more about the kind of the more common fads that go around in the fitness and health world.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many, but one that I've been really sitting with has been your watches, like Apple watches, Garmin watches, whatever your smartwatch might be, right? I mean, they've been around for a pretty long time, and they have a place. I actually do. I love my Garmin, And I love how it keeps me active and holds me accountable, because like you've got your step goal and like these things that kind of just, they're good like little benchmarks for you to keep in mind for like your activity level. Like if you look and you're like, okay, I've only had 2,000 steps and that's on my average for the whole week, this is a good like sign, like, okay, I think I need to be moving a little bit more. But point being with these watches is that they oftentimes are really good at telling you how many calories you burn in cardiovascular exercise. So many people are like, I had a 45-minute workout, I burned 600 calories. And I'm like, that's like such a good workout. And I'm not to say it's not a good work, but that doesn't mean calorie burn is only looking at one part of the workout, right? Because what your watch isn't looking at is muscular strain, right? So you can do a 45-minute workout and it can be just as, if not more effective than a cardiovascular work. I mean, obviously for two different reasons, but like you might be like, oh, but I only burnt 220 calories. And it's like, because it's just a totally different scale. I mean, you're looking at cardiovascular exercise versus like more muscular strain, which your watch just doesn't record. So I think in terms of those fads, that's been something I've been thinking so much about, is like the watch and how the watch can be so deceiving, because you might look at it and be like, oh, I didn't really burn that much because I was squatting and I was doing this, but my heart rate wasn't raised, but my muscles are feeling really nice and fatigued. And like, I actually got a really awesome epic workout. And so that's kind of one fun one that I feel like I've been playing with, because I know personally, that's how I used to be. I'd go to a boot camp, 45-minute workout. I'm like, I burned so many calories. And that was like how I judged the success of my workout, versus now I just recognize as like, that's so bad. Because it's just, one, it's really not good to put yourself, you should not be doing more than 150 minutes of cardiovascular exercise a week, like intense. Like that HIIT training. I mean, you don't want to be doing that on a regular basis. Like that's not a daily exercise routine that you should get into. But I know for me, I fell into that for a period of time and I quickly burnt out. And I could feel it in my body. So that's one for sure that I find super popular, is looking at your watch and judging the success of your workout off of how many calories you burnt as opposed to muscular strain.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I honestly could not have asked for a better answer. I'm like 100% on board with you on that. It's something that, so I work with Dominique Leclerc, who's also a Pilates instructor. She also does HIIT and low impact, and she cycles. She's an athlete on her own. But it's like her worst when she's like taught a Pilates class and the clients say like, oh, but I only burned this many calories in that workout. And she's like, oh my word, but do you realize what you just did with your body? How amazing. You are sweating. Like you are sweating. Your muscles are like tired. You've worked, you've done it. And for me, you know, from a yoga perspective as well, there's so many other factors. So if I go for a walk up the mountain, or I go for like a nice 4-hour hike, but I walked, I strolled, I stopped for a sandwich in between, you know, I had a swim in an ice cold pool, and it says to me, I burned like, I don't even know how these things work. So it says like I burned like 100 calories or whatever. There's honestly no way to wrap your head around the reality that that is the value of the experience that you've just had. There's so many other factors to it's, you know, if you're going, if said the people who are going to come to your space, you're going to have social interaction. You're going to meet other people. You're going to feel a different kind of energy. You're going to do the actual physical work. You might then end up like having a nice juice or something that's really nutritious. There's so many other factors happening. So I'm so glad you brought that up, because again, I think it's this hyper fixation that we can get into of what is going to get me the best results, the quickest and the fastest. And exactly, I can convince myself that if I'm burning a lot of calories, that I'm doing well, like good job, like you're doing well, you're on track. And again, I don't think there's necessarily anything super wrong with it. It's not like don't have a watch or whatever. But I think it's again coming back to that why. Why are you that fixated on what is going on the watch?
100%. I honestly, and going back to the same point of how do you feel? Like even for me, this last 2 days, I haven't done a lot of cardiovascular work, but I did upper body on Monday or on Sunday, and then I did lower body yesterday. And I'm like, for me, technically, if I look at my watch, I burnt like maybe high 200s calories for both sessions, yet I feel so good. And I don't feel like it's just so much more of like, okay, but how do I feel today? And then today I'm going to go for a run. So I'm giving myself that balance, and not just because if I looked at my last 2 days, I would have been like, oh, I didn't burn enough calories. And of course, calorie intake and output and all of that's very important from a nutrition standpoint. But looking at that as how effective your workout is definitely something that I feel very strongly about. That I feel like oftentimes people are judging, and it's just like it's not a cold fast like hard truth of like how good a workout is how many calories you burn. But then when you also mentioned consistency too, of like oftentimes there's like, oh, 4 weeks and you can lose 20 pounds or sorry, kilos, 10 kilos or whatever it might be. And I would love to see those success stories and how those people are a year later, right? Because it's like, sure, they could, and there are very quick ways to lose a lot of weight very quickly and like drop, but then how often is it actually sustainable? And I would be pretty confident to say that it's like 95% of the time people do fall back into whatever their regular is. So instead of doing these quick wins, it's like doing something that's actually changing your lifestyle, and it's supporting for longevity. So it's like talking about your nutrition, being like gentle and soft with yourself, of like that takes time. So you're not going to get the quick results. Like oftentimes, especially with strength training, when you're first doing strength training, there's this thing called cell swelling, which it's a whole nother science, but it's like you don't actually necessarily feel as or look as great as you probably would like to in that first month, which for then people then get like, oh, I don't like this, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm off. But it's like, it's kind of one of those things like you kind of need to push through it. It's just your body's transition period. And then once you do, then you get that like more like you start to see the muscle definition. Things kind of start to like, fall into place, for lack of a better word of saying. It's like, but that takes time. And oftentimes people just want that quick fix because they want to feel good now and that instant gratification, which the reality is that fitness is it, like you said, it's an ongoing thing. This is like this, we're not looking for something for the next 6 months. Like I look for fitness plans that are going to be for forever. Like I want to do this for the next year. Of course it can change and modify and my body changes, but ultimately I don't want to then just be like not working out for 6 months. You know what I mean? It's got to be sustainable.
Yeah, it really is. To me, I always joke and I say like, I can't wait to see what I'm like at like 80 if I live that long. But like I feel like I'm gonna feel my best. Like the older I get, the better I feel in my body. And it's not to say I don't have niggles. I feel like I'm working out a lot of trauma and a lot of kinks from the kind of abuse that I've put my body through potentially in my life, whether it be through sugar, whether it be through sports, or whether it be whatever, just neglect of self-love and appreciation and connection. And now I'm on this journey to become more connected, to become healthier, to be stronger, to feel good in my body, to feel grounded, to feel, and able to do normal things like not bump my toe on every second chair because I'm not mindful of where I'm putting my feet, or to not like click my neck when I need to drive and look at my blind spot. Like to me, all the things I'm doing with my body is to improve my overall well-being, my overall experience of life, my day-to-day things, because your 60 minutes of training or your 30 minutes of training is such a small part of your reality. And so many people invest so much in that like 30 minutes or 60 minutes, and like you say, then they go off and they can't walk for 3 days, and you're in pain for 3 days, and your lower back is sore, or your core is sore, or you've tweaked a muscle or something because you've invested so much into that small amount of time. Whereas that little time that you're on your mat or that you're at your gym, that is your investment. That is not your reward. That is your investment moving forward. And that needs to have a ripple effect into the rest of the 23.5 hours of the rest of your day. And so, yeah, thank you. You've shared like so many golden nuggets. I myself have felt inspired a little bit to get back into, a bit of cross training. Actually, also with the massage that I went for yesterday, my masseuse was like, she always gives me so much shit. She'll be like, I can tell that you're rolling onto the outer edges of your feet, or I can tell that you're overusing your hip flexors, or I can tell that you're overusing this muscle or that muscle. So it's always so great to go to her because she highlights those things. And, you know, she does say that cross training is such an important part and is something that I preach quite a lot to my clients. And so I'm going to use that as a little bit of a segue just for you to share a bit of information. I know you've shared a little bit about Hype, about what you're going to be offering, but maybe just a little more about what's currently happening. I know that you've just had a live event, which was amazing. I'm so sad I can't be there. But it looked incredible. It looked like everyone had so much fun. And so if you could share a little more about kind of what's currently happening, what steps are you in, and when you do launch and open, what can people expect? Like, what are they going to expect when the doors of Hype open?
For sure. Well, yes. Honestly, it feels so surreal. Like last weekend was the first Hype event. So we open our physical doors to the location in November of this year. So about 6 weeks out. And up until then, I'm hosting 3 park workouts, one of which was last weekend. So I've got 2 more. And they're just super fun, community driven, just like bring people together, talk about exercise and recovery. And it's a 40-minute workout followed with a fresh juice and then a dip in the ocean. As we know, we love the cold immersion. It's just that perfect dopamine spike that you need. So if anyone is in Cape Town Sea Point and interested in joining, that's definitely, you'll find me there. It's September 30th and October 21st. And then in terms of when we open up our doors, honestly, I salivate thinking about it. I'm like so excited. So the main services are, we do strength training as well. It's really resistance training is what it's like, resistance, strength training, and cardio. So kind of that, it's all programmed. So we offer group classes. And as I mentioned, it's programmed such that depending on what your goals are, we can structure your classes so that you are getting the results that you're looking to achieve. We also offer open gym. So if someone is not so much focused on the group training and they would rather just do something more solo and they can do their own programming and want to do that, there's, open gym access. And then as well as private and semi-private training. So if someone is more interested in doing more one-on-one based, do that. Couples, whatever it might be. But it's all very much like members are going to be getting one-on-one guidance and goal setting sessions with me or any of our Hype trainers so that we make sure that they're feeling supported and kind of helped along the way, and held accountable ultimately. And all of the memberships come with recovery room access. So that's the sauna and the ice bath, because in an ideal world with the training, the strength training, the cardio training, like putting in that rehab for your body of the sauna and the ice bath, and what's called a Nordic cycle in terms of the 20 minutes in the sauna and then followed with a quick dip in the ice bath. Not really that quick. It's like 5 to 10 minutes, but
it feels like an hour.
It's honestly so addicting though. It's like, it sounds so scary to people, but when you feel what it feels like to have that dopamine spike, this is science. Like it literally releases so much dopamine in you that you feel so good. It's like, it goes back to your point of like energy throughout the day. The whole vision for Hype is like, you go in and you're excited to go in because you know that when you come out, you're actually going to be feeling better and more energized so that you have more energy to go do the things that you really want to do, whether that's spending time with your family, whether that's, you want to have more energy at work because you're just like feeling like you're kind of dragging throughout the day, or you want to play a game of paddle and you don't want to be like falling over at the end. It's like whatever your goal is, it's like that's, you feel so much better leaving Hype to go take on the rest of your day. So that's absolutely the goal for the vision of the Hype space. But I'm honestly so excited, and I'm selfishly so excited because I'm going to everything. I'm going to be in that sauna, and then and I can't wait to share it with others because it's just it's something that I've been doing for myself, and I've felt how much my personal mood has elevated. Struggling with anxiety and depression, it's like this has like immensely helped me come out of that, and I'm just looking so forward to like showing people what it can do for them and finding out what works for them and helping them feel great in their bodies. That's the vision and the goal.
Oh, I mean, I'm just like, where were you when I lived in Cape Town?
Yeah, I
But
know. I went
luckily,
here.
yeah, luckily I make a few missions through every now and then. So best believe I'm gonna have like a little standing membership, and whenever I'm in town, I will be there. And
Please.
my family will have such a laugh if I tell them, "Oh, sorry, I'm just gonna go to gym quick, and I go do a strength session." They'll be like, "Yes, girl, go do
I can't
it."
wait to see you with dumbbells. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'll take us through like a nice little stretch after.
Perfect. Perfect. That's exactly it.
And then, Tor, I wanted to ask you just kind of like a final question. I recorded a podcast yesterday with, I think I said earlier, with Rix from Ether, and Aligned Living's ethos is very much be your own healer. And it was so interesting because hers, she creates tinctures and she works with plant medicines. And so her ethos is be your own doctor. And like now that I like have you here, I'm like you know, be your own trainer in the sense of like understand your own needs and then find the people around you who can support you in facilitating that. Because like being your own doctor, we don't all have to be a physician to know what's good for us. Be your own healer. You don't have to go to someone to try and feel what is it that I need. When it comes to your fitness goals, like be your own trainer, like be your own cheerleader, be your own person who goes, I know what's good for you because I know you and I can feel what's going on. So I'm like, I'm super inspired. I can just see like all these little threads of like people connecting, and like it just excites me so much. But with that in mind, I'd love for you to just share lastly what your belief around living an aligned life is.
My belief on living an aligned life is, well, I think for me personally, and the vision of Hype is like balance, right? I think that's being in alignment is being in balance with like yourself and feeling like, okay, you're pushing yourself to a healthy degree and you've got that discipline and you're feeling really good, but you're also slowing down when you need to slow down. So it's all about finding that middle point, you know what I mean? Not doing things in extremes and also doing things from a centered place. Like you were just saying, like be your own trainer. It's like, yeah, do this. It goes back to that full circle thing of like doing it for yourself, not looking for that external validation. So I feel like that's what in my mind, that's where the aligned life would be kind of is balance with yourself and not having to prove it to anyone else, you know, just there to support you, you know, in whatever capacity you need. But ultimately this is for you.
Amazing. I love that so much. I love that. It's like, I always say, like, when people thank me, they're like, oh, thank you so much. Like, your classes do so much for me, or it's changed my life, whatever. I'm like, it's honestly my pleasure, but you should also be thanking yourself. And the teachings and the practices that I teach my clients are not mine. It's not things that I've made up. Like, yes, I'm teaching them in my own way, and I sprinkle my own little magic and my own love and intention into the classes. But honestly, I'd have no one to teach if people didn't show up. And so the clients that are showing up, it really is, you know, it really is your journey. It really is, it's up to you. So Tori, I cannot wait to come and experience Hype in Cape Town. I'm sure your mind also is just constantly blown that you're opening this space in Cape Town, in South Africa. Like, wow, just beyond exciting. I am going to add all Tori's information in the show notes below. So if you want to get in contact with her, please, you can head over to the Instagram. You can head over to, I'm assuming, a website launched.
It's there. It's live and active. Yep.
Live and active. Perfect. Yeah, that's that. If you've got any questions, please feel free to reach out to me as well via the website or email. And yeah, thanks to those of you who have watched or listened. Again, just a little reminder, share this with anyone you feel would benefit from it. That's really the intention of these conversations, is to connect people and to connect people in ways that we can support each other as a larger global community. So yeah, I think that's it from me. Tori, thank you so much. You are just the best.
Thank you so much, Kath. Honestly, this was such a beautiful conversation. It's like you and I have always been aligned on our views, and I've always loved like having these conversations with you. So thank you so much for taking the time, and I really appreciate it.
So much love, so much love. And again, thank you to everyone. Mwah. Looking forward to our next episode, which will be coming out soon. So keep an eye out for that. And other than that, if you are listening to this in South Africa, you probably are needing to keep warm with the snow falling everywhere. So keep warm, keep cool wherever you are in the world. Thanks for listening, and we will chat soon. Lots of love. Thanks, Tori.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Aligned Living Podcast. We hope you found inspiration, insight, and a fresh perspective on your journey towards holistic well-being. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Remember, your feedback fuels our mission to bring you valuable content that aligns with your life. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, and feel free to reach out with your thoughts, questions, or suggestions for future episodes. We would love to hear from you. But until next time, take good care of yourself, embrace the present moment, and remember you are your own healer. Thank you for being a part of our community. Goodbye for now.